floor of Kepler 442b like a shroud, filtering the twin suns' light into ethereal beams that dance between towering violet trees. Dr. Elena Vasquez crouched behind a massive root system, her breath catching as she witnessed something extraordinary. Through her field glasses, 3 small creatures, no larger than earth wolves, tumbled playfully in a clearing ahead. Their iridescent scales caught the filtered sunlight, creating rainbow patterns that shifted with every movement. These were Nitherians, the apex predators that had terrorized human settlements for months. But these weren't the massive, fearsome adults that haunted colonist nightmares. These were cubs. Elena had been tracking the adult pair for weeks, trying to understand their behavioral patterns for the Colonial Defense Force. What she'd discovered instead was a family unit displaying remarkable intelligence and emotional complexity. The cubs exhibited play behaviors strikingly similar to Earth mammals, wrestling, chasing, even what appeared to be hide-and-seek among the bioluminescent fungi. Behind her, footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Marcus Chen, her research partner, emerged panting heavily. "Elena, we need to leave, now." His usually calm demeanor was fractured with urgency. "What's wrong?" she whispered, not taking her eyes off the cubs. "Command just authorized Operation Cleanslate. They're sending Blackwater Division to eliminate all Nitherian nests in this sector." Marcus grabbed her arm. "They'll be here within the hour." Elena's blood turned to ice. Blackwater Division, mercenaries masquerading as military contractors. They were known for their brutal efficiency and complete disregard for xenobiology. Protocols. To them, these cubs weren't sentient beings deserving study and protection. They were future threats to be eliminated. "We have to warn them somehow," Elena said, her voice trembling with determination. "Warn them? Elena, they're predators. The adult Nitherians have killed 17 colonists. Look at them, Marcus." She thrust the field glasses at him. "Really? Look, those cubs are playing. They're learning. They're innocent." Marcus reluctantly peered through the glasses. For a long moment, he watched the cubs' gentle interactions. One had discovered a cluster of singing crystals and was calling its siblings over with soft, melodic trills. The others responded immediately, gathering in what could only be described as wonder at the musical formations. "My God," Marcus breathed. They're beautiful." A distant rumble echoed through the jungle, the unmistakable sound of military transport craft. Elena's hands clenched into fists. In her previous life as a colonial marine, she'd seen what Blackwater operatives did to threats. They wouldn't distinguish between adults and cubs. They wouldn't care about intelligence or innocence. "I won't let this happen," Elena said, her voice carrying a steel that surprised even her. "Not to them. Not to any innocent creature." Marcus stared at her, recognizing something dangerous awakening in his partner's eyes. "Elena, what are you thinking?" But she was already moving, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. So, cubs were still playing, oblivious to the approaching doom. Their parents were nowhere to be seen, likely hunting in the deeper jungle. Someone had to stand between these innocent beings and the coming slaughter. Elena Vasquez, former colonial, marine-turned-xenobiologist, felt something primal and protective surge through her veins. The cubs continued their games, their scales shimmering like living jewels in the alien sunlight, unaware that their world was about to change forever. The Blackwater transport crafts descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere like metallic vultures, their engines screaming against the humid air. Captain Rex Morrison stood in the lead ship's bay, checking his plasma rifle's charge indicator. Around him, 12 other mercenaries performed final weapons checks with mechanical precision. "Remember, people," Morrison's voice crackled through. "Their comm units, command wants a clean sweep. No adult Nitherians survived to threaten the colony. Intel suggests a breeding pair with offspring in Sector 7. Sergeant Lisa Park, Morrison's second in command, studied the tactical display. "Sir, there are two researchers in that area, Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Chen from the Xenobiology Division. They've been ordered to evacuate. If they're still there when we arrive, that's their problem." Morrison's scarred face showed no emotion. "These creatures killed my brother on Titan Station. I'm not risking human lives for some overgrown lizards." Meanwhile, Elena had positioned herself on a rocky outcrop overlooking the Cubs' clearing. She'd sent Marcus back to base camp with explicit instructions to report her as missing in action if questioned. Her colonial marine training kicked in as she surveyed the terrain, identifying defensive positions and escape routes. The three Cubs had moved closer to the cliff face, where their mother had apparently carved out a den. Elena could see scratches in the rock, not random gouges, but deliberate patterns that resembled artwork. The Netherians weren't just intelligent. They were creative beings with their own culture. Through her earpiece, she caught fragments of Blackwater communications. They were landing at the clearing's eastern edge, planning a standard sweep and eliminate pattern. Elena's jaw tightened as she calculated angles and timing. Dr. James Fletcher, the colony's chief administrator, paced nervously in his office as he monitored the operation. He'd authorized the Netherian elimination after pressure from terrified colonists. But something about Dr. Vasquez's recent reports nagged at him. Her descriptions of Netherian intelligence and social structures painted a picture very different from the mindless killers they'd assumed. Back in the jungle, Eleanor watched the Cubs through her scope. The smallest one, she'd started thinking of it as Echo, due to its habit of mimicking its siblings, had wandered closer to her position. It paused, tilting its head as if sensing her presence. For a moment, their eyes met across the species divide. Echo didn't flee. Instead, it made a soft, trilling sound, the same gentle call Elena had heard the Cubs use with each other. Recognition. Somehow, this young alien understood she wasn't a threat. The sound of approaching boots shattered the moment. Elena's enhanced hearing picked up the Blackwater team's movement through the dense undergrowth. They were close, maybe 200 meters out and closing fast. Her hands moved instinctively to her sidearm and the various survival tools on her belt. Morrison's voice crackled over an open channel. "Target acquired. 3 juvenile hostiles confirmed. No adult presence detected. Moving to engage." Elena's blood boiled. Juvenile hostiles. These men saw children, yes, alien children, but children nonetheless, as nothing more than targets to eliminate. The fury that had been building since she first learned of Operation Cleanslate now reached critical mass. She keyed her emergency transmitter, broadcasting on all colonial channels. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, Xenobiology Division. I am declaring the Netherian Cubs in Sector 7 under scientific protection. Any action against them violates Colonial Charter Article 12 regarding sentient species." Morrison's harsh laugh echoed through the jungle. "Nice try, Doc. But command's orders supersede your hippie science protocols. Stand down or be considered." "Hostile?" Eleanor stood slowly, her marine training flooding back as muscle memory overrode scientific restraint. She checked her weapons charge and surveyed the battlefield with tactical eyes. 12 armed mercenaries against 1 scientist with a conscience. The odds were terrible. The cause was just. And somewhere behind her, 3 innocent Cubs played. In the fading light, unaware that their lives hung in the balance of one human's willingness to fight for what was right. The first plasma bolt seared past Elena's head, vaporizing a chunk of violet bark from the tree behind her. She rolled behind a boulder as more shots followed, the mercenaries apparently interpreting her defensive position as aggressive intent. "Last warning, Dr. Vasquez!" Morrison's voice boomed through a portable amplifier. "Step away from the hostiles, and you walk away alive." Eleanor keyed her comm unit. "The only hostiles I see are the ones shooting at a scientist trying to protect children." She punctuated her statement by lobbing a smoke grenade into the clearing. Years of colonial marine combat training had taught her that superior numbers meant nothing if you could control the battlefield. The cubs, startled by the explosions and acrid smoke, huddled together near the den entrance. Elena's heart wrenched, seeing their fear, but she forced herself to focus. These mercenaries would show no mercy to innocents. Sergeant Park flanked left while Morrison's main team advanced through the smoke. Elena had anticipated this tactic. It was straight from the colonial playbook. She activated the portable sonic disruptor she'd modified from her geological survey equipment. The high-frequency pulse wouldn't harm the Netherians, whose hearing range differed significantly from humans, but it would cause severe disorientation to anyone within 50 meters. 3 mercenaries stumbled out of formation, clutching their helmets. Elena used the confusion to relocate, her movements swift and practiced. She wasn't trying to kill these men, not yet, but she needed them to understand she wasn't some helpless academic. "She's got military training," Park shouted into her comm. "This isn't a standard evacuation anymore." Dr. Fletcher received the combat reports in his office with growing alarm. His secure line buzzed, a priority call from Colonial Command. On Earth, General Harrison's weathered face appeared on the holographic display. "Fletcher, what the hell is happening down there? We're getting reports of a firefight involving one of your scientists." "General, Dr. Vasquez seems to be protecting the alien cubs. She claims they're sentient." Harrison's expression darkened. "I don't care if they recite Shakespeare. They're a threat to human colonization. Order her to stand down immediately." "Sir, with respect, Dr. Vasquez's research indicates these creatures might be more than simple predators. If they're truly intelligent, that makes them even more dangerous. Terminate this situation, Fletcher. That's an order." Back in the jungle, Eleanor had managed to disable 2 more mercenaries with precisely placed stun charges, but her ammunition was running low, and Morrison was adapting to her tactics. The smoke was clearing, and she could hear him repositioning his remaining team for a coordinated assault. Behind her, the cubs had retreated deeper into their den. But Elena knew the Blackwater operatives carried plasma charges specifically designed to collapse cave systems. There would be nowhere for the young Netherians to hide. A new sound reached her ears, a deep, resonant call from the jungle's depths. The cubs immediately responded with excited trills. Elena's blood chilled as she realized what was approaching. The adult Netherians were returning. Morrison heard it too. "Perfect." His voice carried deadly satisfaction. "Now we can finish the whole family at once." Elena's protective fury reached a new intensity. These mercenaries were about to massacre parents rushing to save their children. Everything she'd observed about Netherian family bonds, their intelligence, their emotional complexity, none of it mattered to these men. They saw only targets and payment. She made a decision that would have horrified her previous self. Drawing her sidearm, Elena aimed not to stun, but to kill. Her first shot took out Morrison's communications officer. Her second disabled their plasma charge specialist. "Change of rules, boys," she growled into her comm. "You want to hurt those cubs? You go through me first." The jungle fell silent except for the approaching calls of the adult Netherians. Elena crouched in the deepening shadows, her weapon ready, her resolve absolute. Behind her, 3 innocent beings huddled in their den. Ahead, armed killers prepared for slaughter. The fury that had been building in Elena Vasquez finally found its focus. She was no longer just a scientist. She had become something far more dangerous, a protector pushed beyond all reasonable limits, ready to wage war against anyone who threatened the innocent. The real battle was about to begin. The adult Netherians burst into the clearing like living storms. Elena had seen them before through her research, but witnessing their full size and power in combat was breathtaking and terrifying. Each stood nearly 3 meters tall, their scales now shifting to deep, aggressive reds and blacks. Their intelligence was evident in how they immediately assessed the situation, armed humans threatening their young. Morrison's team opened fire without hesitation. Plasma bolts seared through the air, but the adult Netherians moved with fluid grace, their scales seeming to deflect some of the energy. The male, Elena had designated him Alpha, released a sound that was part roar, part harmonic resonance that made the ground vibrate. Elena found herself caught between 2 forces, the mercenaries who saw her as a traitor and the Netherian, parents who might not distinguish between hostile and protective humans. But as Alpha's massive head turned toward her position, something extraordinary happened. The creature paused, its large, intelligent eyes meeting hers. In that moment, Elena realized Alpha recognized her. Weeks of careful observation had not gone unnoticed. The great predator understood she was not with the attackers. "Take them down!" Morrison screamed, but his team was already in chaos. These weren't the mindless beasts they'd expected. The Netherians fought with tactical intelligence, using the terrain and their superior speed to maximum advantage. Elena made her choice. Rising from cover, she began providing covering fire, not for the mercenaries, but for the Netherian family. Her shots were precise, targeting the humans' equipment rather than killing when possible. But when Sergeant Park aimed her plasma rifle at one of the cubs, Elena's bullet found its mark in the woman's shoulder. "You traitorous bitch!" Morrison roared, turning his weapon toward Elena. Alpha intercepted the shot meant for her, his scaled hide absorbing the plasma burst. The Netherian's eyes met Elena's again, and she saw something that shook her to her core: gratitude. This alien predator understood she was risking her life to protect his family. The female Netherian, Omega in Elena's notes, had positioned herself between the cubs and the remaining mercenaries. Her protective stance was identical to Elena's own positioning. 2 mothers from different species, united in their fury against those who would harm children. Dr. Fletcher watched the battle footage streaming to his office with growing horror. This wasn't the clean elimination he'd authorized. This was a war zone where species lines had blurred beyond recognition. His hands shook as he reached for the emergency abort signal, but it was too late for half measures. Elena's ammunition ran low just as Morrison flanked her position. His rifle was trained on her chest when a massive claw swept him aside. Alpha stood over her, his protective posture unmistakable. The great predator was defending the human who had defended his cubs. "This is impossible," one of the surviving mercenaries whispered. "They're working together." Elena struggled to her feet, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead. Around the clearing, 6 mercenaries lay unconscious or dead. The remaining 4 huddled together, their weapons useless against the coordinated defense of human and Netherian. Omega approached slowly, her 3 cubs trailing behind her. Elena tensed, unsure of her reception from the female, but the great predator merely studied her with those impossibly intelligent eyes, then made a soft, trilling sound. The same gentle call Elena had heard the cubs use with each other. Acceptance, recognition, family. Little Echo, the smallest cub, broke away from his siblings and approached Elena directly. Without fear, the young Netherian pressed against her leg, his scales humming with what Elena could only interpret as affection. Morrison, battered but alive, raised his head from where Alpha had thrown him. This isn't over. Command will. Send more." Eleanor looked down at him, her fury now cold and controlled. "Then they'll face the same reception. These aren't monsters, Morrison. They're a family, and I'll die before I let anyone harm them." Alpha's resonant call echoed through the jungle, and from the depths of the forest came answering calls. Elena realized with a chill that this Nitherian family was not alone. The species was more numerous and organized than anyone had suspected. The twin suns set behind the violet canopy, painting the clearing in shades of amber and crimson. Elena stood among beings from another world who had accepted her as one of their own. Her fury had ignited not just to protect the innocent, but to bridge a gap between species that others sought to widen with violence. The battle was won, but Elena knew the war for these creatures' survival was just beginning. 3 weeks after the confrontation in the jungle, Colonial Administrator Fletcher stood before a packed assembly hall, facing the most contentious debate in the colony's short history. The footage from Elena's helmet camera had spread throughout the human settlements, sparking fierce arguments about the nature of the Nitherian threat. Elena herself sat in the front row, her left arm still in a sling from the battle. Beside her impossibly sat Echo, the youngest Nitherian cub who had refused to leave her side since that day in the clearing. The sight of human and alien sitting together still caused murmurs of disbelief among the colonists. Dr. Vasquez, Councilwoman Sarah Chen addressed her. Your actions resulted in the deaths of 3 colonial defense contractors. How do you justify siding with alien predators against your own species? Elena stood slowly, her hand resting gently on Echo's scaled head. I didn't side against humans, Councilwoman. I sided with the innocent against those who would murder children. The fact that those children happen to be Nitherian doesn't change the moral equation. General Harrison's hologram flickered in the center of the room. Dr. Vasquez, these creatures remain a threat to human expansion. Your emotional attachment doesn't alter the strategic reality. With respect, General, my emotional attachment has provided us with unprecedented insights into Nitherian society. Elena activated a holographic display showing her research data. They're not just intelligent, they're technologically sophisticated. Those patterns we thought were random scratches, they're mathematical equations. The Nitherians have been studying us as carefully as we've been studying them. A new voice cut through the debate. Dr. Marcus Chen, Elena's former research partner, stood at the rear of the hall. May I present additional evidence? Fletcher nodded, and Marcus approached the center platform. Over the past 3 weeks, working with Dr. Vasquez and her unique diplomatic position, we've established limited communication with the Nitherian community. There are approximately 200 individuals in this sector alone, organized into family units similar to human clan structures. Gasps rippled through the assembly. The colonists had assumed they were dealing with perhaps a dozen scattered predators, not an entire civilization. Elena's comm unit chimed with an incoming message. Alpha's distinctive harmonic tone filled the hall through the speakers. A sound that had once terrified the colonists, but now carried obvious intelligence and purpose. That was a greeting, Elena translated, her handheld device converting the complex harmonics into visual patterns. Alpha is asking permission to approach the colony. They want to establish formal diplomatic contact. Absolutely not. Councilman Bradley Thompson slammed his fist on the table. These things killed 17 of our people. Eleanor's eyes flashed with controlled anger. Those deaths occurred because we invaded their territory without attempting communication. The Nitherians were defending their homes and families, exactly what we would do in their position. Echo stood and moved closer to Elena, his scales shifting to protective patterns. The young Nitherian had learned to read human emotional states with remarkable accuracy, and he sensed the tension surrounding his adopted protector. Dr. Fletcher studied the assembled colonists, weighing their fears against the unprecedented opportunity Elena had created. Dr. Vasquez, if we agreed to this diplomatic contact, what would you recommend? Neutral ground. A meeting between representatives with strict protocols for both species. The Nitherians are willing to negotiate territorial boundaries that respect both our expansion needs and their established communities. General Harrison's hologram leaned forward, and if negotiations fail, if they prove to be as dangerous as we initially believed, Eleanor met his gaze steadily. Then we'll face that reality when it comes. But General, for the first time in human history, we have the chance to coexist peacefully with another intelligent species on equal terms. Isn't that worth the risk? Echo made a soft, trilling sound, and Elena smiled as she interpreted his meaning. Echo wants me to tell you that the cubs have been learning human words. They call me Bridge Walker, one who walks between worlds. The assembly hall fell silent as the implications sank in. These weren't just alien predators learning human language. They were giving Elena a title that suggested their understanding of her role went far deeper than simple alliance. Councilwoman Chen spoke quietly. "Dr. Vasquez, are you saying you've become some kind of ambassador to an alien species?" Elena looked down at Echo, whose large eyes reflected trust and affection. Around the clearing where they'd first met, Netherian families were learning to coexist with human researchers. The fury that had driven her to protect the innocent had evolved into something far more profound, the foundation for interspecies understanding. "I'm saying that sometimes protecting the innocent leads to protecting the future," Elena replied. "My fury didn't just save 3 cubs that day. It saved the possibility of peace between our peoples." As the debate continued into the night, Elena felt Echo's warm presence beside her and remembered the moment when Alpha had stood over her, protecting the human who had protected his children. Some bonds transcended species. Some fury, when righteously directed, could build bridges instead of walls. The vote was close, but it passed. Kepler 442b would be humanity's first attempt at truly diplomatic coexistence with another intelligent species. And at the center of that historic decision stood a woman whose protective fury had ignited not just for alien cubs, but for the future of 2 worlds learning to share the same stars.